the evolution of this. What was the MacBook directly after the G Freeze then?
Yeah, so as part of the transition to Intel, Apple rebranded it as just MacBook.
Okay. So this is the original MacBook that you have here.
No, so this is the original MacBook Air.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So this was released in 2008. It was obviously famous for being taken out of the manila envelope. I'm sure everybody will remember that moment. We'll show it on the screen at the moment for people listening. And in the classic Steve showmanship style, like how he took the iPod or the iPhone out of that top pocket, to show how small it was. He's taking it out of the manila envelope to showing how thin it is as well, which I think is really a great presentation thing, if anything else. And then just holding it up and showing the thinness of the product. Well, why don't you tell us, Chris, and show us a little bit about the MacBook Air?
Sure. So this is the very first MacBook Air, the same one that Steve Jobs would have demoed.
The one that he held on to, the original one?
The very original one. Yeah, well, not the exact one, but yes, this is a 2008 MacBook Air, and I remember seeing it for the first time and not believing that it was a real laptop. And this is also very special because it's one with a... see, it's not holding its battery. This is one that has the solid-state disk option, which in 2008 was just crazy. So you would have had to spend an extra £1,000 to get 64 gig of solid-state storage.
Yeah.
And just a game changer. If you look, there's a complete elimination of ports. Any ports that are there are on this little flap.
Wow, yeah.
On the side, you've got MagSafe. And going back to these original laptops we've looked at, a major key feature was wireless.
Yeah. Was the hoop? Was this the one where he put the hoop through it to show that the Wi-Fi was working?
So the hoop was the iBook G hoop. I didn't bring one of those with me today, but that was the first time you could choose an option of wireless. Okay. And then over the iterations, they decided we definitely want wireless. And then this laptop was like, well, we don't want disk drives. We want you to share your drive over the network and everything else. It's complete elimination of everything. And if you look at it now, you can't really tell that this is a 14, 15-year-old laptop.
No. It's they've made it hard to get thinner, haven't they? If anything, they've got thicker. I mean, this is released like last year or the year before, and this is probably thicker, or if not the same as that.
It probably.
Yeah. I mean, it's more powerful, but it's they've kind of come to a realization that they don't need to make it thinner anymore. I mean, if it can fit in a manila envelope, then surely just make it a little bit bigger and more powerful. Can we hold that up in comparison to the
yeah, of course.
G4? Just because this is like the best visual way of describing the thing. Maybe
stick it on top, maybe.
Yeah, and then put them back and then hold them up together, maybe. Yeah.
So first of all, the MacBook Air is thinner than the entire display assembly.
Oh wow!
Laptop. So
even the screen is bigger than the whole thing.
There's no grace to this, is there? So, yeah. So just as thin as that, and then if you look at the laptop side by side, it's probably 3 or 4 of these laptops thick.
It's insane.
So and then not in the space of a decade.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Just 1 decade.
1 decade.
That's insane. Okay. What are your thoughts, Ian, on the MacBook Air, the clip that we showed, the evolution of the product? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's incredible how much how similar it looks to current MacBook Airs. It's quite a bit heavier than I thought and remember actually. Is this a first edition or second edition 2008? Because there is an important change that happened.
Yeah, so this is the very first one. It's got a micro DVI port. It's very
what was the change?
Well, this was a pretty bad laptop in many ways. It didn't really have proper cooling for the CPU. It didn't really have a graphics card either, or not a decent one.
So it got really hot.
Got really hot, disabled the cores, and just basically incredibly slow. That when it was running. So they released another one very soon after. It was like 6 months after where they improved it just ever so slightly, but enough to make it to the point where it was functionally accurate and the kind of game changer they were going for, because I think arguably this one probably didn't do what you wanted. It was also controversial because it was one of the first times that they'd fixed the battery in place. So on these laptops you could replace the battery, you'd take the battery out. In fact, for a while on the Pros I think you could take the battery out.
Yeah, the first generation,
and this you couldn't. Obviously they needed to do that for design reasons, but it was somewhat controversial. So yeah, a very interesting device. It was more setting the basis for what was to come, I think, rather than a great device on its own.
Yeah.
interesting as it was. Yeah.
What's your take on the MacBook Air?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this one of the first times they switched to Intel chips? And they also, I think with this one specifically, they were using the Duo too.
Yes, this would have been a very low powered, as you said, not very good Core 2 Duo chip. But yeah, they switched in 2006, and this is 2008. So
okay, and then but they also worked with Intel to shrink it completely down. I think it was something like 50 or 60% area.
I think that's this laptop, but again, this laptop's kind of IDE interface bodges all over the place in terms of the board.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not the best.
And then I think the other thing that Apple's just really good at is making people love a product but hate it at the same time, in terms of getting people very uncomfortable.
Yes.
Removing all the ports. You know, they did that with things like the audio jack, getting people to get used to new trends. So they particularly are good at making people excited but also very uncomfortable at the same time.
What's next with that will be wireless charging. I don't think the new iPhones will have an area to do wired charging. I think it will be exclusively wireless, if I had to make a prediction. Which I remember when they did the AirPod thing, they said it was courage. It was about being brave. It was innovation, and they got mocked for a bit. But you're right; it's controversy. They innovate by force, by making people. You need to buy this product in order for this product to work. Which it does work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that again, from a design perspective, they haven't deviated that much in the last decade, really. If we look at the user experience, even the look and the feel of the metal hasn't changed that much.
Yeah. Since Steve died, it kind of hasn't really changed too much, has it?
No. And then, I think even from looking at the OS, when it was on, it still looked really good in terms of, it didn't look dated. It could do with a bit of a polish, but even today's standards, Mac OS hasn't really changed at all.
No.
I've always preferred the OS of Mac to Microsoft, and I think most creatives would agree with me. The advert for the product was basically the same as what was done on the stage. I think that moment was so iconic that they couldn't. There'd be no point trying to make anything else. I think the manila envelope was just like the way to show off the product and just literally put it on top. I mean, there's not many companies that would make an advert of them taking something out of an envelope and just showing it on the screen. And I think that backdrop there, that desktop, again, is one of the more iconic desktop, the world's thinnest notebook. So they were calling it a notebook back then.
I mean, there's lots of interesting things about that ad. I think one of the other things as well is those envelopes. I tried to get one for this recording. It's actually quite difficult because
Really?
the actual idea of, everything's digitized now. You've got Google Docs. All these things have come out of nowhere over that last decade. So
yeah,
it's amazing.
What are your thoughts, David, on the advert, on Apple's style of marketing? I mean, there seems to be a theme throughout the clips that we've showed in the simplicity of them. But what do you think when you see that clip?
Yeah, again, just trying to get people's attention. Yeah. It's not something you would normally want to do, but your notebook or something in an envelope, that's not even something you would even think of. Again, just grabbing attention. I think it makes it really relatable for people. Because again, they subconsciously, I would think, okay, I'll be putting a few pieces of A4 piece of paper in that envelope and it's light, and I'll have the connotation in my mind as to what it means. But yeah, that's what I think.
It instantly hits you, right? You're like, this is different. I can't put this in an envelope. I mean, it would rip the thing at the seams. What's your take, Ian, on that clip?
Obviously, I don't think many people were carrying it around in an envelope, but it really told the story, because at the time, if you did have something like even the G4, you often had it plugged in because it was maybe a bit more powerful. I mean, I know there's a kind of challenge there with it, but carting it around, I can remember having a laptop bag and I'd have to pile a load of cables in and loads of other stuff. And it was just, and because it wasn't designed with wireless in mind, you'd have to have like your zip drive or whatever it might be. So it wasn't really a laptop. It was more of a portable desktop computer. And this was, referred to a notebook, which is kind of a dead term now, but this was a laptop. This was something you could take, sit in the cafe, do your work on it, nothing else needed.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of game-changing piece, I think. And for me, that ad, frustrating as it is, you don't see stuff. It does tell that story. It's like, this is it. This is all you need. You don't need the other stuff.
It tells the story better than words could do. Just the visual thing of here it is.
Exactly. It's similar to the dancing iPod ad in some ways.
Yeah, just as iconic in many respects as well. Cool. Have you got anything else, or are we appled out?
I think we're a bit appled out, but it's interesting with the laptop because when the MacBook Air came out, it was incredibly expensive.
How much was it?
This spec would have been about £3,000.
Okay.
And now the MacBook Air is the cheap laptop
Yeah.
you buy, your son or daughter to go to school with.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's just complete reversal of that. So
Yeah.
build up the design with the crazy adverts and then segue into the cheaper products. I think it's a genius strategy. So.
Cool. Awesome. Well, look, thanks for sharing some history with us, Tris.
Yeah, amazing.
Most episodes are about the future. We talk about AI and blockchain and VR and the metaverse and all of that stuff, right? But it was interesting to look back, I suppose. And I know you've got a lot of stuff, so we could perhaps do another one like this with other products in the future. How much is your sealed iPhone?
It's, a lot.
$10
A lot
grand?
of Google, I think probably. But yeah, but it's interesting that these products are dying. People aren't holding on to them, and so they're appreciating. But I'm trying to kind of create that.
Trying to build a little
collection.
museum. Yeah.
Build a little museum eventually, So,
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, look, thanks for coming on, chaps.
Cool.
Thank you, David.
Thank
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Tris. Thanks for getting
Thanks,
your
everyone.
perspectives. I'd recommend people check out the other episode we did with Tris a few months ago on GPT and DALL-E and AI and where that's all heading. But thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and see you all in the next episode. Thank you.